Hey guys, I wanted to make another video about some stuff that's going on right now, and I think I'm going to name the title of this video Should Christians Fight Back? And when I'm saying fight back, should we fight back physically? And I know most of you probably have already made up your mind on this, and I have too. I just want to talk about some things and bring up some different things, and I really want to have a discussion. I want people to comment and just let me know what they think and how they see these verses, because I've got a couple of different verses pulled up here, and I just want to talk about it because I do think there is a time for self-defense. I don't think we should be defending ourselves, but we should defend others. I know that most of you would probably say, no, we're supposed to always turn our cheek. And I agree. When somebody's attacking us, we should turn the other cheek. We should not fight back. But I guarantee most of you, especially those of you who have children, if somebody attacks your children, you're going to lay down your life for your children. You're going to lay down, your life for your, husband or your wife or your brother or your sister. You're not going to turn the other cheek for that. I know personally, if somebody's attacking me, I don't defend myself like I would when somebody, attacks somebody that I love. If they do that, I'm like, ready to kill. But when somebody attacks, me, and some people are different. I don't know, but that's the way I am, and it's just like I want to talk about this because I'm being honest. I know we're supposed to turn the other cheek, and I know he's speaking to us directly. He's speaking if somebody's persecuting you directly. But what about when somebody persecutes someone else? And I want to talk about some of these verses, that talk about laying down your life for your friends, and then talk about holding, bringing a sword. And I really want a discussion because some of this is confusing, and I want other people's opinions on this. But before I do that, I want to read Matthew 5 and just get into the Sermon on the Mount, because I think this is a great spot to start, and it's where most churches start, and it is the basic, commandment of what Christ told us to do when we are being attacked. And this is in the New American Standard Bible version, whatever you want to call it. It's verse 38. And I'm probably going to go ahead and read a little bit more down, but I don't know why I stopped at 42. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and read it. And this is Jesus speaking. He says, "You have heard it was said, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not show opposition against an evil person. But whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn the other toward him also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your tunic, let him have your cloak also. Whoever forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. Give to him who asks of you, and do not turn away from him who wants to borrow from you." And then he goes on to say, "You have heard it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may prove yourselves to be sons of your Father who is in heaven. For he causes the sun to rise on the evil and good, and sends the rain on the righteous and the unrighteous." And he goes on to say, if you only love those who love you, the tax collectors do the same. What reward is that? But that's, pretty much sums everything up. And what I want to talk about I do believe, and this is what I believe, this is what I feel like the Lord's, showing to me, is that we are supposed to turn the other cheek. We are supposed to, when people are persecuting us, and even if it's the government, if it's whoever it is, it doesn't matter. If they're coming against you, you aren't supposed to defend yourself. You are supposed to, pray for them, go the extra mile. But I do believe that we are also supposed to stand up for others. And if you think about it in this way, if we are standing up, if everyone is loving their neighbor as their self and standing up for their neighbor, then you have many more people fighting for you than you could ever, get by fighting for yourself. If you're not fighting for yourself, but everyone's fighting for you, you have a lot bigger army than somebody, than you fighting for yourself. And I wanted to bring that point up. This is another verse, and this is why I made this video, because a lot of people don't talk about this verse in Luke 22. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's confusing. Some of the translations kind of make it confusing. It's like schizophrenic Jesus here, but I'll get into that in just a second. I want to read this and show you what I'm talking about. This is why some of the newer translations, I like the Holman Christian, don't get me wrong. The Holman Christian gets it right, like, most of the time. But this one spot, it's like, man, all you're doing is making Jesus look like I don't know. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let me get into it. This is Luke 22, and I'm going to read it in the New American Standard Bible first. Luke 22, 35 through 38. And this is Jesus speaking. He's speaking to his disciples. And he said to them, "When I sent you out without money belt, without money belt and bag and sandals, you did not lack anything, did you? The disciples said, they said, no, nothing. And he said to them, but now whoever has a money belt is to take it along. Likewise also a bag. And whoever has no sword is to sell his cloak and buy one. For I tell you, that which is written must be fulfilled in me. And he was counted with the wrongdoers, for that which refers to me as its fulfillment. For that which refers to me has its fulfillment. They said, look, Lord, here are 2 swords. And he said to them, it is enough. Okay, so right here he's commanding his disciples before, and I should have brought up that verse. I actually forget exactly where it's at. But yeah, you can go look up when, he sends them out, and, and then they come back, and he says that he'd seen Satan falling from heaven like lightning. Anyway, you can look up that verse where he sends the disciples out without, anything. But right here, he's commanding him to take this. So he's speaking of physical items, because before he told them not to take any physical items. Now he's telling him, because I've heard some people try to say that, well, he's saying take a spiritual sword or something like that. You have people that try to interpret it whatever the way they want. But he's literally talking about a physical sword. They brought 2 physical swords out and said, and he said, it's enough. The reason I brought the Holman Christian up here is just to show you how they translate it. He tells them to take a sword, and then after that, they bring the 2 swords out, and Jesus is like, enough of that, he told them. Like, he told them to bring a sword, and then he got offended because they brought 2 swords out. But they do have a little notation here, a little thing here that says, or it's enough. That makes more sense, because why would you tell somebody, bring a sword, and then they show you 2 swords, and then, him get bad and be like, enough of that? I don't know. This is just, excuse me, this is just people's opinions messing in translation, and that's why a lot of the newer translations I get aggravated at, because we need to keep people's opinion out of the scriptures and out of translation, translating, because you can get things like that, and this changes the meaning completely. This makes Jesus look like he got angry because they brought out a sword or 2 swords. This one makes him sound like, okay, that's enough, you don't need any more. That's you just have 2. So anyway, yeah, I went off on a tangent there, but you get the point. But like I said, Holman Christian Standard Bible is really good translation. If you're using it, or if you want to get one, I still recommend it. It's accurate for like most of the time. All right, that being said, I just wanted to talk about, why would he tell them to take a sword? Right here, we're not supposed to fight enemies. We're not supposed to defend ourselves, but why would we take 2 swords? And my honest opinion on this is that we aren't supposed to defend ourselves, but we're supposed to defend others, especially the orphans and the widows. We see all the time through other scriptures, and I didn't pull these verses up. I probably should have. We're supposed to, defend orphans, widows, anybody that's needy, anybody that can't take care of themselves. The Lord loves it when the strong take care of the weak, and he wants us to defend the weak, and he wants us to look after them. And when people are coming after the weak and persecuting the weak, we are supposed to stand up and defend them. Even, some people would argue, well, that's not physically. But if people are trying to take advantage of a weak person, maybe it's a weak widow, and they're trying to steal something from her, I'm pretty sure the Lord wants us to physically try to help that person in any way. So, some people might disagree, but, what is the difference between Christ, the Old Testament and the New Testament? Like, we know that we're under grace now. We know, but the nature of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, they are the same. Like, they are the same. Jesus said, before Abraham was, I am. He was the one giving Abraham, the command. He was the one talking to Abraham. So they are the same. They are one. So they do both agree on defending the weak and the needy. And they both agree on laying their, life down for your friend. A lot of people, I've heard some politicians recently talk about you can't serve in the military and serve God. But right here we look in John 15:13, and this is the New American Standard Bible, and this is Jesus speaking about him laying, laying his life down on the cross. But I want to talk about this, so go ahead and read it. Greater love has no one than this, that a person lay down his life for his friends. So this is kind of what I'm talking about. We're not called to do violence. We're not called to go out here and just attack people, wage war, find the enemies and kill them. No, we're not. But when the enemy does attack, I firmly believe, and I know most of you would defend the people that you love, would defend the weaker person. I know I would. And I'm willing to, I'm willing to bet that the Lord would do the same. If he was here and one of his sheep was attacked, he's going to defend him. I know he does that, but I'm talking about even physically. If somebody tries to come against him, he is going to. I remember a story from Arthur Blessitt where people tried to kill him. I think this was in Belize. They literally pulled guns on him and were getting ready to kill him. They started counting down in Spanish. And Arthur, you can look up the documentary The Cross. It's on Arthur Blessitt's main YouTube page. It's for free. It's a really good documentary, so you can watch that. But he was talking how they started counting down in Spanish, and all he could think about was, I want to give these people a Bible before they kill me. So he reached into his truck, or like scrambled to get back in his truck with these 5 men or 4 men standing there pointing guns at him, and grabbed a handful of Bibles and turned around, and all the men were just knocked down, laid on the ground like they had just been KO'd. And you can, he tells the story better because he lived through it. But yeah, so the Lord defends those whom he loves, and he defends the weaker people. He defends people. So I do believe we are called to defend others. And I some people will call that controversial, but I don't believe that. I believe that if we never stood up and defended and physically stopped people, we would be overrun by the enemy. And I can prove that. I could go into historical accounts where if they just laid down, that Europe would have been overrun by Islam. I mean, it's just the truth. There's other times throughout history, if David would have just laid down. Well, I mean, he was commanded to fight people, so was Saul. He was commanded to wipe people out. But if they would have just laid down and done nothing, they would have been wiped out themselves. So we have to talk about this, and it really just goes into defense. And now I know it's a little bit different in the Old Testament with David and with Saul because they were actively trying to establish Israel to bring in the Messiah. There's quite a bit of a difference there. But it still shows that there is a time that we have to defend ourselves because there's no other option. And if what I mean by that is if the Lord hadn't used Saul and David and Joshua and these people to wipe out the people inside of Israel, inside the territory, these people they would have come against Israel, they would have either infiltrated them and seduced them, or they would have come and tried to kill them, and beat them militarily, through brute force. So yeah, I don't want to try to act like I'm calling people for violence, but because I don't think we're at that point anymore. We are grafted in to Abraham. We aren't this exact same as setting up, America or wherever you live isn't the same as Israel was, back 3,000 years ago. But I still believe we have that calling to defend those who are weaker because God doesn't change. He remains the same forever. All right, just to show you what I'm talking about, this is something that was put out recently. This was a photo put out by ISIS saying what they wanted to conquer, what they wanted. And we've known, Islam tried to conquer Europe in the past. We know this. And some of those forms of Islam, some of like the Moors and the Turks and stuff like that, they I think it was the Moors, whoever invaded Spain. The point is they weren't even as radical as the ISIS is. And if we were to lay down and just allow them in, if we were to lay down and not stand up to this, if we were not to fight back, they would gladly take it because their doctrine doesn't line up with ours. And they would gladly, they see our, restraint, they see our kindness as weakness. And that's the main point I wanted to get across in this video, is that they see our kindness as weakness. And it's not that we're weak, we just, we don't want, they don't understand that we don't want to fight. We don't want to hurt them. We don't want to do any of these things. All we want to do is worship the Lord and, raise our families. And I just wanted to bring this up, but here's the image a little bit bigger. I mean, you can see they're all the way up in here, taking out almost into Italy. There's a bunch of Croatians here, Albania, anyway, Greece. But yeah, you see what they want. And then they go all the way down over here into Pakistan and parts of China, I guess. Anyway, the point is I do believe we are called to stand up and defend our neighbor, to fight for our neighbor, to lay our life down, not for ourselves. We're not supposed to defend our own life. The Lord defends us each, and but we are supposed to stand up and fight for others, and we're supposed to defend others. That's my opinion. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comments. You can let me know if you think that I'm evil and wicked. Let me know. I don't really care. I don't ban people's comments down there. I like to talk to people, and I like to discuss. If you think I'm wrong, but you want to be kind, I appreciate that too. But yeah, just let me know. God bless and take care.